Um, I'm Jessica Colvin. I'm the Tam District Wellness Director. I oversee the 5 wellness centers and programs in Tam District, and adolescent health and wellness is my passion. When I heard from Tiffany Shlain, our local filmmaker and artist, a few years ago that she was interested in making this film, I was so excited. I have already used the film in so many ways with staff, with students, and with parents and caregivers. But this is our biggest audience yet, so we're thrilled to be here together. I'm going to be following an agenda. Can we? Perfect. And just wanted to remind you that this is a collaboration between Tam District Wellness, Marin Healthy Youth Partnerships, and their amazing Let's Talk program. So tonight we're going to be doing some welcome and introductions. We're then going to show the 10-minute film, The Teen Brain, and Tiffany's going to tell us a little bit about the background of the film, the why and the how. We're going to then learn incredible. We're going to learn incredible content from our national experts. We're going to have a question and answer session with our panel that includes a local student. And then we're going to close up. You can go to the next slide.
I'm so happy to be here. First of all, I am a local girl. I grew up in Tam Valley. I went to Mill Valley Middle School. I went to Redwood High. I went to UC Berkeley. I love the public schools in Marin and in California. And I'm so happy to have my daughter Bluma here. That's very exciting. And then all these experts, which feel like family to me. I can honestly say that I love each one of them. I've known them for a long time at this point. We have worked together on various projects, and it's just such a joy to interview them for hours, talk deeply about this issue. And I also want to say, in addition to the experts who are the top experts internationally on this issue, we also have Jessica Colvin, who I also interviewed multiple times. So I know she's organizing this, but she's incredible, and she creates these amazing wellness centers at high schools. And I love her work just as much. So this is kind of a dream experience for me, and I'm just going to set up the why I made this film. I have made a lot of films about neuroscience. I'm, from birth to 5 years, called Brain Power, and I love making them short. I love taking very complicated science and making it accessible through animation and through unusual ways. And then I made a film called The Science of Character, which is how I met a lot of these people that are on the call. And I did a global event called Character Day. And this was a 10-minute film also, that was about the neuroscience and social science of character development. And I actually knew I always wanted to make a film on the teen brain. And Ken Ginsberg, like 10 years ago, we were almost going to make that film. And then other things happened. And then Goldie Hawn, who we all know and love, who has an incredible organization called MindUP, wrote me out of the blue. And she's like, I love your films on neuroscience. And would you consider making a film on the teen brain? I really feel like there's a lack of a film on this subject. And I was like, I would love to make that film. In fact, I have a proposal already, which I did from when Ken and I were talking about it. So I had a proposal ready to go. And then the other auspicious, gorgeous thing that happened was that someone connected me with Ellen Galinsky, who I knew about through the Aspen Institute, which we're both associated with, but we had never met. And somebody's like, Ellen is just finishing this like epic long journey making this book, The Breakthrough Years, and she's focusing on this subject. So I got connected with her. So it was very exciting. So I worked a lot with her research and her experts in it, and they're featured in the film. And then other neuroscientists that I knew and experts like Dr. Michael Rich, who I've worked with on another film about the default mode network. So this film was like a real coming together. And it was a gift for me as a parent of a teen to spend a year plus with the top minds in this space and speak with them deeply about the subject. And I talked to about 25 teens, which is the other really important part of this film, is that I wanted it to be for teens. That's why it's 10 minutes. So if you're a parent watching this, or the teens that are in the house, this length was for you. And I really wanted it to be like not an 80-minute documentary, which I've made, but I wanted it to be like, you can watch it and then have a discussion. So we're going to show the film. Curtains are parting. Curtains are parting. Oh, now I can see myself for the first time. Okay, so we're going to show this 10-minute film, which is The Teen Brain. Then we're going to have a great panel discussion.
So you want to know what it feels like to be a teen? A lot of it is like a roller coaster.
Everything is just more extreme.
School, friends, drama.
It's just a lot.
So what is going on in the teen brain?
And we do know that the teen years are some of the most important years in human development. And people across cultures have known this, marking the teen years with rites of passage and celebration. But now we have more science than ever before to understand the teen brain and why it's such an amazing time.
There's so much that I want to know about my brain.
I mean, I wish I knew more about what's going on in my brain when I was a teen. So we asked the top scientists and researchers, what are the most important things to know about the teen brain?
Adolescents are emotionally brilliant.
Adolescents are super learners who are natural explorers.
One of the great things about adolescents is that they're risk takers. They're sensation seekers. And that's not a bad thing.
So it's like they're supposed to try new things and take risks. That's how they learn. But that's also where the stereotypes come from.
Teenage gang debs. Kick happy, thrill hungry, always reckless.
Teenagers look like adults, but we're measuring them as deficient adults. We don't go to toddlers and say, you're a deficient preschooler.
When you promote adolescence as a time of brokenness, adolescents will think they're broken.
We can't tell them that they belong if there actually isn't cues in place to make them feel like they belong.
It's a precarious time because kids still have one foot in childhood and they're stepping into the earliest stages of adulthood.
Being a teen means being in an awkward stage of, with you guys, I feel a lot like a kid because you guys are my parents, but when I'm with my friends, I feel like an adult.
During adolescence, roughly age 10 to 19, you go through a process of separating, individuating from the adults in your life to set you up to eventually be more independent.
There are even biological things that happen. I mean, you might feel like, I don't even want my parents to breathe around me. That's totally normal.
When I asked the teens in my study what adults should know about people their age, one of the things that they said was understand us, understand our development. We're often saying little things to them like, stop being such a teen.
Yo te entiendo. ¿Tú crees que no tuve tu edad?
Honestly, I just wish adults would remember that they went through this too. They could really learn from who they used to be.
It is an age when you have the courage to try new things. This drive to really explore novelty is a wonderful feature of how the brain is remodeling in various fascinating ways.
The amygdala, which is this loud emotional space, part of the limbic system, becomes much more sensitive during this period. It actually grows in size from being flooded with hormones. No wonder you feel like you're on a roller coaster ride of emotions every day.
I've been having a bunch of emotions that I don't understand.
Emotions feel so strong and it's all like, I'm upset in this moment and it's hard to sort of see the bigger picture.
And the prefrontal cortex, which is about judgment and decision-making, is just a little bit quieter during this period, growing at a different rate.
You just your mind, it's almost like your mind plays tricks on you.
Like I felt like I couldn't get out of this mental space.
The brain is changing the fundamental aspect of its structural connections, what's called more integrated. That is, the linkages will become more robust. An adolescent, even at 15, is able to do so much more than a child at 10.
This is my first time doing this. I don't know what I'm doing. If you tell me the oven is hot, I'm gonna have to touch it.
Every few months, we'll have a moment where we feel like we level up in consciousness.
They are just in progress. And the worst part for kids about having brains under construction is the disappointment they feel when they make a bad decision.
Being mentally healthy is not about feeling good or calm or relaxed or happy. It's two things: having feelings that fit the situation and then managing those feelings well. So if you're upset because an upsetting thing has occurred, you might want to talk to people who love you. You might want to go for a run. You might want to listen to your sad playlist. You might want to have a good cry. Your job is finding ways to feel better that bring relief and do no harm.
And sometimes the things that make you feel better might also open up new passions. The teen brain is wired to try lots of new things to see what lights you up. What are you passionate about?
People who are doing things they're passionate about and put in energy and effort and love it and are clearly loving it. That's what forever will be the coolest thing.
Where I focus my attention is going to strengthen my brain even as it's beginning to prune itself down.
Which is basically saying, pay attention to what you're paying attention to. During adolescence, your brain is incredibly malleable, and it's also incredibly susceptible.
Teens are subjected to more input than probably ever before in human history. So much of what is occurring in their brain is not what they signed up for.
And you have to have the neurological filter of like, this isn't all real, this isn't all true, I'm being manipulated.
Now kids get sucked down rabbit holes by algorithms.
Things that should be horrifying start to just become kind of standard.
And companies are taking advantage of that to influence what you do and think. And they don't always have your best interests in mind.
Too much processed information is like too much processed food. It's satisfying in the moment, but leaves you feeling empty.
I was actually really depressed, and it was because of social media.
I felt like it was very controlling and trapping, and so that's why I deleted it.
It's endless. Go, scroll.
It's so easy when you're like, oh, I'm stressed, I'm gonna look at my phone or, be on Instagram or watch TikToks. I think it's so dangerous because that doesn't make you feel better.
With so many stressors coming into your brain all the time, school, friends, news, social media, it's completely normal to feel stressed and overwhelmed. It's your amygdala lighting up and telling your nervous system, I'm in danger, fight or flight. But it's how you choose to respond to those big feelings that really matters. You want to build your own unique toolbox of things you can do in the moment to de-stress, regulate, and get grounded.
I love to go run.
I really like to draw. When I volunteered at an animal shelter, that was kind of like my calming time.
Close my eyes, then breathe in and out, slowly, deeply.
Breathing deeply and through your nose and not your mouth can help you regulate.
By taking deep, slow breaths, you're actually triggering your body that I'm not about to run. You fill out your belly, you activate the parasympathetic system. And the parasympathetic is calm, relaxing.
And as your nervous system calms, you're able to access your prefrontal cortex again, which helps you think more clearly and problem solve. And you can take a brain break anytime. In the morning, before a big test, before a game. And there's one other thing that can really set you up well, getting a good night's sleep.
We have data showing that you do not actually get as good a sleep if there is a nearby phone. We are all so attached to our phones that we have to resist the impulse to engage with it even while sleeping.
A good night's sleep helps you think better, get better grades, and be in a better mood.
When you integrate your brain, you as an adolescent are actually taking charge of the wheel.
Yes, this is a time when the highs are really high, but the lows are really low. But this is a time when you are just experiencing everything in a way that people go to movies to feel. You get to feel it, and you get to feel it now. And you get to shape yourself into whom you want to be and whom you want to become.
People who I know are genuinely happy with themselves are people who just said, you know what? It. These are my people in high school. These are my friends. I don't care what other people think of them. And I love them because I can tell them anything and trust them.
It's not that we don't care what people who are older than us have to say to us in advice. It's just like, okay, I'll take what you said into mind, but I also need to figure out how to do things in my own way.
14,000 students were surveyed, and they asked these students, why is it important for you to have a healthy brain? And 90% of these students said it's because they want to be known for something, that they contributed something.
There are so many teens that have said the things that no one will say and do the things that no one has done.
A great trick of power is making you feel powerless, and I think that teenagers are often tricked into thinking we don't have power, when we very much do.
We as adults need to realize the future of the world is dependent on the essence of adolescence, and an integrated brain is the basis for well-being, for resilience, for insight, for empathy.
And knowing your brain puts you in the driver's seat. So where do you want to go?
Whenever I feel stressed out, I try and go on a walk with my mom.
Just, reading a book or spending a little free time with either family or friends.
Moving, I think, helps me a lot.
Let's eat some food and then you might feel better. And I'd be like, I'm not hangry. And then you eat food and you're like, okay, I was.
Perhaps right before I go to sleep, instead of looking at my phone, I kind of just take a moment.
stop my share for a second. That was so fun to watch with all some of the people that are in the movie or that helped form the movie. So that was such a pleasure. I know we're going to hear individually from the experts, but it was very cool to watch it with so many people that helped make it happen.
Thank you, Tiffany. What an amazing film. I know that I am going to use it for years to come in my work. Let's share the screen again, Melissa, and we will bring on our national experts. It just keeps getting better. The film is fantastic, and now you're going to get to learn more from these 3 experts, who each of them we could learn from for hours and hours and days and days. I hope that this brief content and educational piece of the evening will inspire you to buy their books, to look at their websites. They have so much to share. We're going to start with Dr. Ken Ginsberg, who's going to talk about getting conversations with teens right, myths and misunderstandings that disempower parents and professionals, sharing the truths about adolescence, brain development for communication. Welcome, Dr. Ginsberg. We're going to spotlight you.
Thank you. It is such a pleasure to be here tonight. And I have to tell you, when I think about what I really want to contribute to the world, it's to prepare adults to be the kind of people that young people deserve in their lives. And what that means is we have to figure out how to engage adults instead of push them away, right? And therefore, we have to really think really hard about our messaging. So let's talk about the messaging for the teen brain for a moment, because let me tell you something. There is literally nothing new about the teen brain whatsoever. Teenagers have had brains for millions of years, or at least hundreds of thousands of years. That's not what's new. The science is new. And when we try to explain it, sometimes our explanations actually backfire and push people away, right? So I would like to take a really deep breath and congratulate Tiffany, not for the end product, which is magnificent, but for the process. Because I know how hard you worked, Tiffany, to get this right, to give a message of empowerment that offered solutions, that made adolescents look empathetic and wonderful, and engaged adults to want to be supportive of them instead of being pushed away. So Tiffany, thank you, thank you, thank you for getting this right. Because the big questions are this. The questions are, how do we see adolescents? And the biggest question that adults ask themselves are, can I make a difference in an adolescent's life? Parents actually ask themselves, do I still matter? Why are these questions? These are questions because there are mythologies about adolescents, things that suggest they don't like adults. Well, guess who proved that wasn't the case? Ellen Galinsky proved that that wasn't the case. All right. I've been quoting her for a very long time. So if you believe the myths that adolescents don't like adults, that they're inherently risky, right? That they're irrational and can't be spoken to, you will disengage instead of develop. So the question that we have to think about is, are we portraying adolescence as a time to survive or an opportunity to develop humans to their potential? Are adolescents problems to be fixed, or do tomorrow's solutions reside within them? We have to refute these myths. We have to speak the truth. We have to use the right language. Adolescents are emotionally brilliant. They are highly sensitive, which is absolutely their superpower. Is it sometimes a burden? Absolutely. But they're going through the phase of life where they're noticing and feeling everything. This is a profound strength, right? And we've got to refer to them as super learners, natural explorers. We have to help adults understand what our role is. Our role, given that adolescents are natural explorers, and as they get to new knowledge, they have reward centers in their brain that literally go like, wow, which makes them want to do more and push further. So adults have a role. Our role is to create clear boundaries beyond which kids can't stray. That doesn't restrict young people. It gives them more freedom because they can safely explore. But it's not just that. It's not just boundaries. It's creating boundaries that offer golden opportunities that are enriching and exciting, because when the adolescent, driven by their brain, gets to the edge of these boundaries and has a wonderful experience, their brain goes, whoa, and stop there and can solidify the lessons. So hear me clearly. Are adolescents risk takers? Well, they're natural experimenters. Do they go into risky territory? Absolutely. But they're going to do that much less likely when adults are standing by their side with appropriate boundaries and giving enriching opportunities. And the message to the hundreds of parents here, if you asked me what are the perfect words you're going to say to your child during stressful times, I'm going to tell you the perfect words are not what you need. Show up, stand by, show them that you love them. Why do we love? To let human beings know that they're worthy of being loved. Show up when they're doubting their own worthiness. That's what amazing parents do. And when we talk about the teen brain, let's use these words that engage adult connection rather than disconnect adults from them. Let's see what's on the next slide. So these are the myths that we don't want to go with. Adolescents think they're invincible. It's just not true. They're wired for risk. No, they're wired to learn and they're wired to explore. They don't care what parents think. Not true. Don't like adults. Not true at all. Are self-centered. Anything but true. Watch Tiffany's film. Adolescents are driven by idealism. That they can't be reasoned with, that one's true. Unless you know how to talk to a teen. Their brains are so brilliant that the question is emotionally brilliant. The question, which part of the brain are you going to activate, right? Because their thinking part of their brain, their cognitive thinking, their planning is also growing. It's also brilliant. The question is, which part of the brain do you turn on? And we have some control over that, because for a young person who's emotionally brilliant and highly sensitized, when you turn on that part of their brain, it goes on overdrive. And it's hard to do the thinking and the planning that they deserve to be able to make. So the question is, are we going to use what's called hot communication or cold communication? I wish cold communication was called warm communication because it's really great. But hot communication looks like this. Exuberance, over the top, right? Or condescension, anger, belittlement, lecturing, talking to a human being whose entire job is to figure out who they are and how they're going to become more independent, and saying, I'm the boss around here. You're not the expert in your own life, which is not true. But if you approach an adolescent in that way, you're going hot communication, you're activating their emotional brains, and they're getting stimulated and can't think. So what do we do instead? We use cold, which was called warm, communication. We are calm. We can be joyful, just not over the top. We are respectful. We are loving. We recognize them as experts in their own life. We include them in all discussions so that they feel honored with their growing independence. This will keep the emotional part of their brain calmer. And now you have the brilliant and developing rational part of their brain take over. So when you know how to talk to a young person, and by the way, I don't just work with families, I also work with youth who have endured as much trauma as you can imagine, who are experiencing homelessness. So calming kids down is what I have to do for a living. And when you activate the thinking part of the brain by just co-regulating, sharing your calm, my amygdala telling your amygdala, things are okay. I'm here. You're not alone. And I'm respecting you as the expert. What do you think? How would you get started? And when they are sensitive and thoughtful, I'm not going to say things like, you're too sensitive. That's their superpower. How about instead we say something like, your greatest strength is how much you care, how sensitive you are, how much you feel. It's going to make you the best partner, the best parent, the best boss, the best colleague. Right now, you're going to need to learn how to manage that gift you have, that superpower you have. That's the challenge that we're going to work through. We elevate the strengths and invite them to learn how to manage those strengths. Next slide, please. So again, lead with the truth. What you don't want to do is go out into the communities and go, kids are not risk takers, because that just makes everyone think he's saying it because it's true. Lead with the truth. Use the language that's great. Adolescents are emotionally sensitive. They care deeply about adults and want them as guides in their life. They really appreciate nurturance. They really appreciate new knowledge. Speak about these truths everywhere you can, not just in parenting conferences, but in sidelines, in schools, in religious institutions, so we can change the way people think about youth and empower adults to be involved. Next slide, please. So these are the truths which I already talked about. Really, super learners, natural experimenters, emotionally brilliant. They want adult guidance. Next slide, please. This is my latest book. I have another one coming out in a couple of months. This one is really just a reframing of adolescence so that we can really, like, it's not a tongue-in-cheek name, right? I'm not like laughing, congrats, you're having a teen. I'm saying this is a great time of life, a time of life where you can really celebrate the adult your child is becoming, nurture your relationship, and help them develop. I'm going to use Tiffany's word, character, right? Develop their character strengths by seeing all that is good and right in them. Next slide, please. So, we actually talked about this. Adolescents are emotionally brilliant. They are natural explorers who deserve healthy boundaries and golden opportunities. And we want to learn to talk to young people in a way that activates their thinking capacities, right? That's the bottom line. We want to show up, stand by, care, and help everyone know that they're deserving of respectful listening. Why do we do that? So people know that they should be heard in their entire lives. Why do we love? So that people know they're worthy of being loved. That's what's going to make them healthy when they're 60 and 70, right? Next slide, please. It's the Center for Parent and Teen Communication. This is a free resource with a ginormous amount of material on how you can communicate with your child. It is shockingly strength-based. We really are trying to empower parents with skill sets, and you all can become members, get weekly newsletters at no cost, or go through the site and search for any information that might be helpful for you, including a comprehensive coping plan to learn to manage stress. That's also a way to calm the emotional centers of the brain. All right, I don't know if I went over, but no one put the hook, so I hope that I stayed within time.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Ginsberg. That was amazing. I wish we had hours with each of you. So excited to learn from Ellen Galinsky, who is going to tell us about the new story around brain development, why a new story is needed and what it is. Welcome, Ellen.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here. I actually wanted to start out as a parent, seeing all of you sign on, and I was the one clicking you into the webinar. I kept feeling how it feels to be the parent of a teenager, and it can be pretty frightening to be the parent of a teenager. They look different, they sound different. At times, they're sometimes the child you knew, sometimes they seem like a very different person. And we've been warned a lot about what it's like to be the parent of a teen. I found in the nationally representative study of parents that I did that 61% had been told, just wait till your child is a teen. And the media is also so often negative. Frameworks Institute did an analysis of how often stories were about the strengths of teens versus the weaknesses and the vulnerabilities and the scariness of the teenage years. And it was 2 to 1, 2 negative to 1 positive kind of story. And just like during the election, when both sides of the political aisle were trying to use fear-based approaches to get our votes, people often try to use fear-based approaches in adolescence. the titles of books, the articles that are written are so often scary. So I wanted to start out with the fact that as a mother, as a grandmother, I know the pressures that we have during this time and how the world is not always very supportive. The joy of being here with Ken, with Michael, with Tiffany, with all of you all, with this incredible film, is that it tells a new story about adolescence and a story that's supportive. The story that you've probably heard is that kids make stupid decisions, that they don't think very well, that their thinking part of their brain isn't developing as well as the emotional part. I ask in my study for parents to use one word or term about the adolescent brain, and only 14% of parents used positive words because they've heard those negative stories. But that's really an old story. I think that's what Ken was saying as well. First of all, I want you to think of a group of seventh graders standing in a line, and how different they are. So you might have the average development. If you took averages of all the kids in the country, you might see different development among the thinking part and the more emotional part of the reward center of the brain. You might see that they're on different trajectories. But if you look at the actual development over time, the averages mask that individual difference. It would be like looking at those seventh graders standing in a line and saying they're all this height. They are not all of this height. They are really quite different. Culture matters too. What we expect, and Ken said this, I think, really beautifully. If you expect storm and stress, you're more likely to get it. If you expect negativity, you're more likely to get it. If you can, the parents I talked to for this 9-year journey that I did to understand the adolescent, which involved putting together neuroscience, kids' views and parents' views, the parents would often say, "My kid is a good kid, I'm so lucky." And so again, we really need to understand that, as Ken, I think, said so beautifully, this is an amazing time, a time of opportunity. Context matters too. Whether it's a highly emotional situation or not matters in terms of how kids are doing. Underneath here, I have some free newsletters that speak to this, and I hope you'll join my Substack. It's free, and get all of these articles. I know that we're going to share these later. Let's go on. The news story is needed because I think once I used to photograph birds, and I think about how it's kind of like leaving the nest. The task of the kids this age is to begin to move farther from home, and their sensitivity, their emotionality, their sense of adventure is what actually propels them out of that nest, and also helps them know whether they're safe or not, whom they can trust. They need to be able to react quickly. People think a lot about the hormones of puberty as being like a hormonal minefield, but dopamine, for example, the role of dopamine is to help people learn from their experience. So these are exploring, learning years. And one of the main things that kids are learning are the skills that they'll need that will help them throughout their life. This is a sensitive period of development. It's the time when executive function skills, just like in the early years, they're being formed. In this time, the superhighways of the brain are being built, and a lot of what's being built is these skills to be able to understand other people's perspectives, to solve problems, to think critically, to set goals, those kinds of skills. This is the formative time to develop, and that's why I called the book The Breakthrough Years, because these are the essential skills that help us now and help us later. If we go over to the next slide. It's a sensitive period of development, and it is a prime time for learning these executive function skills. But I want to say that adults are learning too. I did a book on parent development, and we learned how to manage our toddlers. We learned how to manage our school-age kids. And all of a sudden, when our kids become adolescents, we're going to have to relearn how to manage them again. So kids are learning these executive function skills, but so are we. If we could go to the next slide. If I had some particular advice, the takeaways would be to help kids learn skills and then help them take positive risks. The sense of exploring, the sense of adventure is so exciting, but they need opportunities to test themselves, to try new things. And positive risks can be everything. I think of my grandson playing soccer. Every time he gets out on that field with a new team, it's a positive risk. I think of my son when he was learning to play music. Again, a positive risk. These aren't big, scary things, but they may be standing up in front of other people. They may be going to meet someone new whom you don't always know, and help them learn the skills that are developing during this time. One of the ways we do that is to name the skill. If you see them taking on a challenge, talk about it, use the name of the skill. If you see them thinking critically, talk about it, use the name of the skill and share it. And then for us, there's that magic pause that's critical as a part of executive function. Just like we're teaching them to do breathing, as Tiffany said in the field, to slow down, to pause before reacting. That helps us too as parents. At those moments when it feels at times overwhelming, we can pause and then go forward to make these years the breakthrough years that they are. Everybody does the work that they do for someone special. And I'm doing this work for my grandson. And he's just turning 11. I want people to understand his development. And I want to make these years for him and for all the kids, your kids, my kids, breakthrough years, the breakthrough years that they deserve to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellen. And thank you all for this amazing, positive, hopeful spin on the teen years. That's what I love so much about this conversation in the film. Finally, I'd like to welcome Dr. Michael Rich, the mediatrician, who will talk about teens' potential as explorers, questioners, and sensation seekers, and will also teach us about the 5 M's, to model, mentor, monitor, and the memories and mastery and more. So welcome, Dr. Rich.
Thank you all, and thank you for including me in this stellar group, including Tiffany and Bluma, I will say. I really resonated with Ellen's comment about the spin of fear that sort of drove the election. And it also, I flashed on the spin of fear around adolescence that has been spun by a very best-selling book this summer that basically is saying to us that we have ruined a generation of kids by giving them smartphones and social media. I think this is the wrong story. It's both inaccurate and wrong because it doesn't help the kids or the parents with this. The kids are all right, and they're going to be all right, and they rely on us to being all right for them. And that's what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about now. So if we can have the next slide. I love working with teens. I learn so much from them. Every single time I have a clinical session, I learn something from the kids. They are all potential. They are very sensitive, as we've heard. They're very bright. They have a strong sense of exploration and also of agency. And I think that one of the things that actually adolescents that I'm taking care of now are really dealing with is what I call the long tail of COVID, because they are biologically programmed to move beyond their nuclear family to their peers, to the larger world. And at very critical stages, they were prohibited from doing that. They were locked in a box with their parents, whom they are biologically driven to move away from. And For many young people, they lost as many as 3 years of normal development, and they are playing catch up now. But they are so creative, so thoughtful, so sensitive, and the risk taking and sensation seeking that in many ways scares us parents, makes us wonder whether they, are thinking right. I love the piece in the film about treating them like they are little adults. They are developing their brain, and their brain is developing in different patterns in different parts at different rates. In fact, one of the earliest parts of the brain to fully develop is the visual cortex, and one of the last areas of the brain to develop is the prefrontal cortex, which is where executive function resides. Interestingly, it was not the neuroscientists or the doctors that figured this out first. It was the car rental companies, because what they found was the actuarial tables crossed at age 25 between the risk they take in renting a car and the profit they make from it. So young people are in many ways like the plane we're building as we fly it. They are building their brain as they use it. And part of how they build that brain is by taking those risks, skinning their knee and picking themselves up. They try, they make mistakes, they err. I don't think I ever learned anything from something I did right the first time and did right every time. I learned from the mistakes I made, and I am making them all the time now. And I think it's okay for us all to have a state of grace and a state of learning around our errors, including our errors with our kids. One of the things about these kids is that they are early tech adopters, and this scares a lot of parents. It's what is behind this fear of social media and smartphones, and they are using these devices, incredibly powerful tools, because in many ways they provide a really fertile environment for adolescent development. Think of it, they are seeking experience. They are building their library of human experience, which they get vicariously through everything from touring the world and playing games. They seek independence from parents, from teachers. I've had many a high school teacher tell me about their students in class randomly smiling at their knees because there's a phone underneath the desk. They are building their social consciousness from being sort of self-centered and family-centered children, looking out to the world and seeing a world that isn't perfect. And they want to connect with others and address things like climate change. And the internet is an incredible place for connecting with people who feel similarly and also are on similar quests. They are also building their identities. Once we were building our identities with those we knew, our parents, our nearby neighbors, teachers, now we can build our identities from the whole world in many ways. Who do I like? What do I want to be like? Who do I want to not be like? What do I not want to do? And one of the truly wonderful things about the internet is that for young people who have historically been marginalized, ostracized, bullied in their own physical communities, they can find communities online that are their people, that see them, that hear them, that affirm them, that love them. And finally, with these identities, they seek connection with others in the world. And today, Facebook, even though the kids are leaving it in droves, Facebook is the largest nation on earth with over 3 billion unique users every month. Now, one of the things that not just adolescents do, but we all do, is we believe that we can multitask. We believe that we can do two things at once. And this is, having, the television on while doing our homework, or texting with friends. And the reality is the human brain only operates on one channel. But we are doing, in this case, what we're doing is rapid switch tasking from thing to thing to thing. And we miss things. We scoot over the surface of things. We cover a lot of ground, but we don't reflect on them and take a moment to really think about them. And this is something that we all do, adults as well, because of the dread FOMO, the fear of missing out. With young people, particularly adolescents who are sort of making their way into the world, there is another layer on top of the FOMO, which is what we call faux blow, fear of being left out. Fear that if they don't respond to that text or that posting online immediately, that it will have implications on their relationships. And this is what can really threaten their sleep at night because they have their phones under their pillows. And we need to take a step back and realize that these powerful tools need to be treated as just what they are, powerful tools, not as toys, not as treats, and not as our master that controls us. We control them. Next slide. So what do we do about this? We have to be the change we want to see in our kids. So I use the 5 M's as ways of helping kids grow up to be healthy, smart, and kind in this very media-saturated world. The first M is to model the behavior we want to see. If we are staring at our smartphone at that all-important work email while telling our kid to turn off their video game, to them, that's the height of hypocrisy. We have to be the change they want to see. And here's the thing that's really interesting about this is one of the things I ask my patients when their parents are out of the room, somewhat subversively, I'll acknowledge, is I ask them what their parents could do better. Almost always the first thing out of their mouth is, pay more attention to me. These kids' parents are saying, he never talks. She doesn't tell me where she's going. I don't know what's going on. They want to be attended to by us. They want us to pay attention to them. And they want us to be present and also to model being present when we are together. The second M is to mentor them in their use of these powerful tools. When they get a smartphone or a social media account, sit down next to them, not with judgment, not with fear, not with guilt, but with curiosity, and learn it with them. Learn this new device and learn from them. Now, one of the interesting things that I find is that parents will say, I dread the internet talk more than I dread the sex talk, because rightly or wrongly, they think they know something about sex, but they understand that the kid knows more about the digital ecosystem than they do. But mentors learn as much from the mentee as the mentee does from the mentor. And that is why I use the term mentor. Learn together, be a part of their digital lives from the beginning. This also leads into the third M, which is actually the one that parents and kids push back against the most, which is to be able to monitor their digital lives. Yes, the kids will say, oh my God, I need my privacy. Even though to a 13-year-old, privacy kind of means so mom and dad can't see, but not the rest of the world they're oblivious to. The parents say, I don't have the time to follow his every video game or go on social media wherever she is. But if they have their usernames and passwords, they are able to monitor their young people. They are able to have conversations with the young people, and the young people are able to have conversations with them when they come to places that are scary or confusing or just weird in one way or another. We need to be able to actively parent in the digital space now, because the kids are spending as much or more time there than they are spending waking hours not there. And ultimately, what this does is it allows us to understand that these tools are good for some things and not good for other things. We put them down, and then we can make memories. We don't make memories of what we do online. We make memories of a walk in the woods with grandpa, or kicking a soccer ball around the backyard, or as in Field of Dreams, just playing catch. These are the things that hold us together as humans. And finally, through all of this, having mastery of these powerful tools, use them purposefully and in focused ways, and turn them off when they're not the best tool for the job. As I said in the mentorship and also monitoring, listen to our teens with respect and with curiosity about them. Help them actively unleash their creativity and imagination. They are creating all the time online, but we need to do it consciously, not just every snap or every Insta, just sort of throwing it out there, but saying, understanding that this is a reflection of them. This is their statement to the world of who they are. And one of the best ways to unleash that creativity is we have to bring back boredom. We can't get on elevators without pulling our phones out or walking down the street. Boredom is the crucible of creativity and imagination and innovation, not just because it allows brain space that we might otherwise fill with whatever drivel is online, but that space is a little uncomfortable, so we fill it with thinking the new. And over 100 years ago, there was a very bored patent officer in Switzerland who used to walk to work beside the river, stamp a bunch of meaningless bureaucratic papers, come back beside the river looking at the eddies and swirls of the water, and go upstairs and in the space of 1 year write the 4 key papers of theoretical physics. Late in his life, when Einstein was asked how he did this, what the scientists or the science historians call the miraculous year, he said, it's because I was bored and my mind could travel through time and space. The extension of that boredom is, it's okay to be quiet together. Quiet time activates our default mode networks. It helps us move toward sleep, toward rest. I will refer you to Tiffany's brilliant film on the default mode network. I'll leave it at that. It's better to leave them wanting more.
I love that. And yes, being bored and quiet. And Michael and I did make a 5-minute movie, which I'll make sure gets sent out in the follow-up notes, called A Case for Dreaming.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Rich. I'm going to share, actually, Melissa, the next slides, and then we're going to finish with a panel in the Q&A, just to kind of bring it home, just like the movie that you all were able to see. And if you look in the chat, you'll be able to see that the link is there, the 10-minute film. At the very end of the 10-minute film, Dr. Dan Siegel talks about the essence of adolescence. And so I wanted to wrap up the content with this essence, because I think all of you have so many brilliant things to share. And this is just such a great summary, and was the very last sentence in the film. So Dr. Dan Siegel, this is not my concept, this is his, and he wrote the book Brainstorm. And I'm going to do this really quickly so we can have time for questions and a panel discussion. We really want to hear from Bluma, our student.
Yes,
okay.
The team.
Yes, the team. So check this out. I think it's brilliant. So the essence of adolescence, everything you just heard is kind of condensed into this concept. And Dr. Dan Siegel figured out a way for each letter to count as something about the teen years. So ES out of essence is emotional spark. You can go back. It's okay. Emotional spark is, as we know, it's revealed in the way that emotion is generated from the brain. And we also know that it's really hard. Our teens have big emotional storms and moodiness, but the upside is a powerful passion to live life fully and kind of to capture life being on fire. The next part of the essence of adolescence is the SE in the word essence, which is social engagement. And we know that social engagement was mentioned earlier. It emerges as teens turn more towards their peers than their parents. We also know it can be difficult. They might fall prey to peer pressure or want to gain membership to a group. But there are amazing upsides of this part of adolescence. Relationships are the key factor associated with medical and mental health, longevity, and even happiness. Now the N. N is novelty seeking. This has also been talked about a lot tonight. We know that teens are seeking new things, sometimes taking risks, and we know why. It's related to their dopamine system. And there are downsides to risk taking. There is, there can be consequences or injury, but there is an upside to having the courage to leave the familiar, certain, and safe home nest for the unfamiliar, uncertain, and potentially unsafe world beyond. So that is another way that we can celebrate the teen brain. And then finally, creative exploration. Adolescents, they push against the status quo. They imagine how things could be. They don't simply accept them. The downside, not just conforming to life as usual, can be disorienting and stressful, but the upside is amazing. The thrill and passion of discovery and the reality that most innovations in art, music, science, and technology actually emerge from the adolescent mind. So huge thank you to Dan Siegel. The final two slides, which I love and I try to channel this, is, and the concept of the film is, rather than ignoring the essence of adolescence, what if we shaped our culture in our homes, our schools, and in our larger society to cherish and cultivate these adolescent qualities? And then finally, with the next slide, how many adults, this is what really drove it home for me, how many adults do we know in our lives who've lost many, if not all of these 4 factors in their life? We know that studies of neuroplasticity around how the brain changes in response to experience reveal that these are in fact the top 4 factors that help keep the brain growing and healthy, these factors that our adolescents have, and they help our brain stay integrated throughout the lifespan. So it turns out that the essence of adolescence is actually the essence of how to live a full and vital life as an adult. We have a lot to learn from our teens. So thank you so much for sticking with us and learning from our national experts. And now we're going to turn it over to Tiffany, our filmmaker, and our experts and our student to have some discussion and a panel and question and answer.
Thank you. I'm going to, and hopefully, can we spotlight Bluma also? I don't know who sees her to spotlight her. But first of all, this was so great. Oh, I'm so glad it was recorded. I know some of you came in the middle, were asking, it's all recorded and you can watch the film separately. And it's such a gift to have my daughter Bluma here with us, who's a teenager. We've been speaking about teens all night. And I also was, one of my favorite conversations was when I interviewed her for the film, which I really recommend teens do, is to ask your own teen the questions that I'm about to ask, and that I asked over 25 teens, was like, what's it like to be a teen? Which was one of the most interesting conversations, just let them speak. But I'm gonna ask Bluma, since you watched it with so many people tonight, is what was your takeaway from seeing it, seeing the film? And I know you saw me making it, but to see the finished film. And
yeah, I think one of my main takeaways from the film was seeing that when you get really emotional and when you feel really frustrated towards your parents sometimes, that all of those feelings are completely normal because, like Michael was saying, we're biologically driven to move away from our parents because we're learning how to be our own people. And I never knew that before I watched the film. And I think that's something important for parents and teens to know.
I know, actually, it helped me because, it's hard to not take it personally when the child that just wanted to be snuggled and held suddenly is like pushing you away. And I learned making the film that biologically, there are times when your teen is repelled by you, like your very smell and breathing and eating repels them because that's biological, that they're trying to individuate. And once I learned that, I'm like, oh, okay, it's not me. Just trying to separate. Okay, Bloom, I guess this is a question I asked every teen and I recommend every ask, but like, it's been a while since I interviewed for this film, so maybe your answers changed, but what's your favorite part about being a teen and what's your least favorite part about being a teen?
Okay. Well, I think my favorite part about being a teen is I almost like the fact that we're not an adult and we're not a child because we don't have a lot of expectations and we're allowed to try new things. But I think at the same time that's the worst part because people assume like that we're so helpless when we're really not and we do hold power. And yeah.
I love that. And I think you did hear, I think I lived half of my life offline and half online. And you heard Michael talking about like this fear around social media. I certainly know there's a lot of good things around social media. I see it personally and I know with you, but why don't you share what you think are the good parts about social media as a teen and what are the downsides of social media as being a teen?
Well, I use social media all the time. I mean, it helps me stay connected to like what's going on in the world and all my friends. Like that's how I stay connected with most of them. And I think a lot of the times I do use it as like a stress reliever to just unwind. But I definitely think there's a point when it can cross that line and just feel super overwhelming and addictive. And it's very easy to cross that line.
Do you feel like like when you feel that way, do you feel like you have the mental tools to be like, I have to turn it off or put it away, or is it a struggle? Or
I mean, sometimes I can put it away, but definitely most of the time it's a struggle. I feel like I just want to stay on it.
I mean, that's like one of the things in the film. I don't know if I tried to present why phones need to be out of the bedroom, because that's another thing I learned is just that even if it's off and next to you in the room, and we do have Bluma put her phone downstairs at night. Sorry, that's our dog. But that she wants to be in the Zoom too, but that psychologically, that phone is there, and even if it's off and away from you, you can't sleep as deeply. So it's like our brains aren't strong enough for these tools, and I think that that's something that I'm always returning to is that even I, who have a developed brain, it's hard for me sometimes. So I think really understanding that building self-regulation tools is.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I feel like sometimes parents will just like cut it off completely, but I loved what we had together when with like you and dad because we would just create more regulations instead of cutting off social media completely or like yeah, no social media. It was just like take your breaks, put your phone downstairs and like regulate because there is definitely a way to use it healthy, like in a healthy way.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Bloom, and I'm going to argue with you, Tiffany, as I often do. Our brains are strong enough to fight these back. We just have to be conscious of it. It's